Weeks later, we returned to the river one last time, not to take more gold, but to appreciate what we had learned. The hidden chamber was sealed, the alcoves carefully marked in our minds, and the smaller caches we took were enough to change our lives without inviting disaster. Mark, Jake, and I sat by the river, sunlight sparkling on the water. We split our finds fairly, each of us leaving a portion behind as a mark of respect to the mountain, and to the old man who had guided us. The old man smiled, watching us from the edge of the trees. "You've done more than survive. You've learned something most never do. Treasure isn't just gold. It's patience, courage, and knowing when enough is enough." We laughed, our voices echoing off the cliffs. For once, greed and fear had been tamed by wisdom and trust. I realized that weekend trip, which had started as a casual escape, had turned into the adventure of a lifetime. We had found gold, yes, but we had also found something more valuable. Friendship, respect, and a story we'd tell for the rest of our lives. As we packed up and walked back down the mountain, the river glistened in the sun. And I knew, deep down, that this was the beginning of a life full of unexpected discoveries, both in the mountains and within ourselves. The end. The chamber smelled of damp stone and old wood. Gold glittered in the dim light, but I couldn't stop thinking about what the old man had said. It tests your heart. Just as we began to divide the smaller piles, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. A boulder shifted above us, threatening to block the entrance. "Careful!" the old man shouted. Mark, still hot-headed from before, rushed to grab the largest nuggets. I grabbed his arm. "Wait! If we don't move carefully, we could get trapped." Jake hesitated, sweat dripping down his face. Maybe we should just leave some here," he whispered. The old man nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Greed can trap you faster than the mountain itself." We carefully moved the gold into safer, more hidden spots within the chamber, leaving only a manageable amount with us. By the time we exited, the boulder had shifted slightly, sealing the hidden chamber from easy access. Outside, under the open sky, we breathed in the fresh mountain air. I looked at Mark and Jake. In that moment, I realized something important. The mountain didn't just test our courage, it tested our friendship, our patience, and our ability to resist temptation. For the first time, we felt not just relief, but a sense of accomplishment. The old man smiled. "You've done well. Gold can make fools of men, but you proved you're wiser than most." The next day, we returned to one of the hidden alcoves along the river. While scouting, the old man tripped over a root and stumbled into a patch of overgrown brush. "Watch out!" I shouted, but he just laughed. As he got up, he brushed away the vines, and my jaw dropped. Behind them was a small opening in the rocks, almost like a natural door. A faint glimmer came from inside. "Looks like the river has one more secret for us," he whispered. We crawled in carefully. The space opened into a small chamber, carved naturally by water over centuries. And there it was, a pile of gold, larger than anything we'd seen before, scattered among old wooden crates and tarnished metal tools. "Someone hid this long ago," the old man said, eyes wide. "We're not the first to find it, and we probably won't be the last." I realized the stakes had just doubled. This wasn't just a few nuggets anymore, it was a fortune waiting for those brave, or reckless, enough to claim it. The old man turned to me, face serious. "Remember, the mountain tests more than your courage. It tests your heart." And I knew he was right. With all this gold, we could be rich beyond imagination, but only if we stayed smart, calm, and united. We crouched on the ledge, the river roaring below us. The old man finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Gold like this, it's dangerous in the wrong hands. You can't just take it home. They'll hunt you for the rest of your life." I nodded, gripping the box tightly. "So what do we do?" He smiled faintly, eyes glinting. "We hide it where only the river knows. Somewhere no man dares to follow. You survive tonight, and tomorrow we plan." Over the next few hours, we mapped a series of hidden spots along the riverbank, caves, ledges, and natural alcoves only visible during low water. He taught me how to move silently, how to read the forest for danger, and how to make decoys with rocks and sticks. By sunrise, we had a strategy. The gold would be split, hidden in multiple locations. No one could take it all at once. If the intruders came back, and they would, we'd be ready. I realized then, surviving this was bigger than greed. It was about outsmarting danger, respecting the mountain, and learning patience. And for the first time, the gold felt like a blessing instead of a curse. I sprinted into the trees, heart hammering in my chest. The box of gold was heavy in my arms, but adrenaline made it feel lighter than a feather. Behind me, shouts, gun clicks, and crashing branches told me the intruders were right on my tail. I zigzagged through the underbrush, dodging roots and rocks, trying to keep the river's sound in my ears so I wouldn't get lost. The gold shifted in my hands with every step, its weight reminding me of the danger it brought. At one point I stumbled, scraping my knee on a jagged rock. Pain exploded through my leg, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Then, through the trees, I saw the old man. Standing there, calm as if he'd been waiting for me. "Over here," he called, voice low. I skidded to a stop, panting. The intruders were gaining, their voices angry, furious. Without a word, the old man led me down a narrow, hidden path along the riverbank, one I hadn't noticed before. The thick trees and underbrush concealed us. By the time we emerged on a small ledge overlooking a deep pool, the intruders had lost sight of us. "This river has its ways," he said, finally smiling. "It protects those it chooses." I looked at him, still trembling, clutching the box. For the first time since finding the gold, I felt hope. We weren't safe forever, but maybe, just maybe, we had a chance to survive. The fire crackled, shadows twisting across the rocks. My throat felt dry as sandpaper. Mark stood tall with his knife, but I could see his hands trembling. Jake clutched a heavy branch like a club. Then, out of the tree-line, they stepped forward. Not ghosts. Not spirits. Men. 3 of them. Dirty, rugged, with rifles slung over their shoulders and eyes locked on the box of gold. The tallest one grinned, revealing yellow teeth. "Looks like you boys struck lucky. And now, we're here to collect?" My stomach dropped. These weren't hikers or curious wanderers. These were prospectors, scavengers, men who'd probably been shadowing us since the river. Jake whispered under his breath. "We can't fight 3 with guns." Mark didn't listen. He raised his knife. "Back off! This is ours!" The leader chuckled, stepping closer. "Ours, huh? You think the mountain gives a damn who found it? You either hand it over, or we take it off your corpses." The old man finally stirred, his eyes flashing in the firelight. "Blood for gold, same story every time." The air turned ice cold. Mark lunged first, reckless. One of the intruders swung his rifle like a bat and knocked him to the ground. Jake roared, swinging his branch, and chaos exploded around the fire. I froze, staring at the box. At the gold. At the way everything in our lives had twisted the second we touched it. And then, I grabbed the box and ran into the darkness. We sat around the fire, the box of gold between us like some cursed idol. None of us wanted to sleep. The weight of it, the danger of it, kept us wired. Mark kept running his hands through the nuggets, letting them glint in the firelight. Jake just stared, breathing heavy, like he was doing the math in his head. Me? I couldn't shake the old man's words. "You're doomed." He hadn't said another word since. He just sat cross-legged, staring at the flames with that eerie half-smile. Hours dragged. The forest grew quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the crackle of firewood and the rush of the river. Then, snap! A branch broke somewhere in the dark. Jake froze. Mark's hand went to his knife. My heart tried to jump out of my chest. Another sound, whispers faint carried by the wind. Jake leaned close to me, voice barely a whisper. "We're not alone." From the shadows of the tree-line, I swear I saw movement, figures shifting just beyond the fire's reach. Eyes watching us. Mark stood up, knife out. "Who's there?" he shouted. His voice cracked. Silence. Then another branch snapped, closer this time. The old man chuckled, that same low laugh that made my skin crawl. "Told you, boys. Gold don't stay hidden for long. And it never comes without a price." The fire flickered, and for just a moment, I could have sworn I saw 3 silhouettes watching us from the darkness. While Mark and Jake wrestled in the dirt, I slipped closer to the brush, pretending to kick dirt on the fire. My eyes never left that rusty box. The old man saw me, and his smile vanished. His voice cut through the chaos. "Don't touch it, boy. That ain't yours." But the way he said it, it was his. The box was half buried, the earth around it disturbed like it had been dug up recently. My heart pounded as I crouched and brushed dirt away. My fingers hit cold metal. Mark finally shoved Jake off and stumbled over, bleeding lip and wild eyes. He spotted me. "What the hell's that?" Jake came up behind him, breathing hard. When they both saw the box, the fight stopped. For the first time, all 3 of us were on the same page. Mark knelt beside me and started clawing at the dirt. Jake joined in. We dug like animals, mud flying, fingernails breaking, until the thing came loose. With one last heave, we pulled it free. The old man just sat there, staring, eyes gleaming like he'd seen this before 1,000 times. The box creaked when Jake pried it open with a stick. Inside, wrapped in rotting cloth, was gold. Nuggets, flakes, and dust piled high. Enough to buy 100 lives. For a second, the only sound was the river rushing in the distance. Then Mark whispered, almost reverently, "We're rich." The old man chuckled low, shaking his head. "No, son. You're doomed." The old man's nugget sat between us like a loaded gun. Bigger, heavier, glowing with a raw, golden fire. My stolen nugget suddenly felt small. Mark's eyes widened with hunger. He leaned forward, hand twitching like he wanted to grab it, but Jake held him back. "Wait. Why are you giving this to us?" Jake asked, suspicion dripping from his voice. The old man grinned, showing broken teeth. "Not giving it. Testin' ya. Gold's funny like that. It don't just show what you want, it shows who you are." Mark scoffed. "Enough with the riddles, old man. If you've been sitting on this, you've got more. Where's the stash?" That's when it happened. Mark lunged for the nugget. Jake shoved him back, and the 2 crashed into the dirt, fists flying. The fire crackled as they rolled dangerously close to the flames. I should have stopped them, but I just froze. Watching. The greed in their eyes scared me more than the fight itself. The old man cackled, shaking his head. "Just like I thought. Gold don't make men rich, it makes them crazy." In the chaos, I spotted something strange. Behind the old man, barely hidden in the brush, was a rusty metal box. It was half buried, but glimmers of yellow peeked through the dirt around it. My breath caught. It wasn't just one nugget. There was more. Maybe much more. That night I barely slept. The nugget burned in my pocket like a secret too big to hold. Every crack of a branch, every shuffle of a sleeping bag, made me think Jake or Mark was sneaking up to search my stuff. By sunrise I decided to stash it deeper in my pack, under some dirty clothes. But when I unzipped the bag, my heart dropped. The nugget was gone. I tore everything out, panic rising in my chest. Nothing. Just empty wrappers and crumpled socks. Mark and Jake were sitting by the fire, acting way too casual. Mark had that smug little smile on his face, the kind he wore when he thought he was smarter than everyone else. "Lose something, buddy?" he asked, tossing a stick into the flames. Jake just sipped his coffee, eyes locked on me. I felt anger boiling up. "Give it back." "Now." Mark laughed. "Back? Back what? You mean that shiny little rock you've been hiding?" "Yeah," Jake showed me. "You really thought you could keep that to yourself?" Jake finally spoke, voice low and sharp. We're a team out here. No secrets. If there's gold in that river, we all deserve a share. My fists clenched. It wasn't just about the nugget anymore. It was about trust, betrayal, and the ugly truths shining brighter than any metal. Greed was here, and it wasn't leaving. Just as the tension hit its breaking point, we heard movement in the trees. The old man stepped out again, slower this time, holding something in his weathered hands. He dropped it in front of us. Another nugget. Bigger than mine. And with a raspy laugh, he said, "Let's see what kind of men you really are." The next morning, I woke up to find Mark rummaging through my backpack. "Dude, what the hell are you doing?" I snapped, pulling it away. He raised his hands like it was no big deal. "Relax, man. I was just looking for the lighter. Thought maybe you had it." But his eyes told a different story. He was looking for something else. Later that day, while we were hiking upstream, Jake walked beside me and whispered, "So, you're not gonna tell us about your little midnight stroll?" My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" I played dumb. He smirked. "Don't mess with me. I saw you. Down by the river. You were digging around in the water like some kind of prospector. Find anything shiny?" I forced out a laugh, but inside my heart was racing. That evening, the old man showed up at our camp again, almost out of nowhere. He stared straight at me, ignoring my friends completely, and said, "The river gives, but it always takes back." Then he turned and walked away into the trees, leaving my friends staring after him in confusion. Mark looked at me hard. "Okay, man. What's really going on here?" The nugget in my pocket felt heavier than ever. I knew if they found out, it wouldn't just be excitement, it would be chaos. And yet, part of me wanted them to find out. To share the madness. But the other part knew, the second they saw that gold, friendship wouldn't mean a damn thing anymore. Back at the campsite, I tried to act normal. I shoved the pan under some gear and sat by the fire, but my hands were shaking. The old man's words kept echoing in my head. "It will cost you more than it gives." But it was too late. I was hooked. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, one of my buddies, Mark, suddenly asked, "Hey, where'd you sneak off to earlier?" I froze for half a second too long. Another friend, Jake, smirked. "Yeah, man, you were gone for a while. Don't tell me you found a secret fishing spot." I forced a laugh and shrugged it off. But their eyes lingered on me longer than usual. Suspicious. Searching. That night I couldn't sleep. The river's whisper was pulling at me, and the heavy weight of the nugget in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. So, in the dead of night, I grabbed my pen again and crept back to the water. Except, I wasn't alone. The old man was already there, crouched by the bank, washing gravel under the moonlight. He looked up at me, his face pale and strange in the silver glow. "You came back," he said softly, almost like he'd been expecting me. And then, without warning, he pulled something from the water, something bigger than anything I'd seen before. My chest tightened. It wasn't just a nugget. It was a chunk. The size of a walnut, glowing in the moonlight like a piece of the sun itself. I wanted it so badly my fingers twitched. And that's when I realized, if he'd found that, then this river might be hiding more than I could ever imagine. But at the same time, if he knew, how long before my friends found out too? The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened. My friends were packing up instant noodles and arguing about who burned the last pot. But my head was spinning with one thought: I have to go back to that river. So while they were distracted, I slipped away with a small pan I'd borrowed from our camp supplies. I knelt by the water, my knees sinking into the cold stones, and began swirling handfuls of gravel like I'd seen in documentaries. At first, nothing. Just wet dirt, shiny rocks, and numb fingers. But then, a flicker of something golden beneath the surface. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I pulled it out, another piece. Smaller, but definitely real. This wasn't a fluke. And just when I thought no one had noticed, I heard the crunch of boots behind me. It was the old man. He crouched beside me, his eyes locked on the pan in my hands. Then he whispered, almost like a warning, "If you're not careful, that gold will cost you more than it gives." Before I could respond, the sound of my friends calling echoed through the trees. I shoved the nugget into my pocket, pretending I'd been skipping rocks. But as I stood up, the old man grabbed my wrist, not hard, just enough to make me stop. "There's a reason I came here too." His voice was calm, but his eyes, they carried something darker. Something I wasn't ready for. I stood there, holding the nugget in my palm, half convinced it was some kind of prank. My hands were shaking so much, I almost dropped it back into the river. The others were still by the campfire, laughing about something stupid, but the old guy, he was staring right at me. I swear, he hadn't moved in 5 minutes. Just sipping his tea from that metal cup of his. When our eyes met, he gave me this knowing smile, almost like he had been waiting for this moment. "Careful with that," he said suddenly, his voice deep but calm. I froze. Nobody else had noticed what I'd found. Somehow he knew. When I walked back toward the group, I kept my hand closed tight. My best friend asked me why I looked so pale, and I just muttered something about being dizzy from the altitude. But the old man leaned over and whispered, "That river hides more than you think." That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. If there was one nugget, there had to be more. Right. And the craziest part? I wasn't the only one awake. I caught the old man standing by the river in the moonlight, as if he was waiting for someone. Or something. That was the moment I realized, this trip wasn't going to be just a hike. I never thought a weekend trip would change my life forever, finding gold in a mountain river. So, here's the thing. I wasn't even supposed to go on this trip. My cousin bailed last minute, and my best friend nagged me into joining a small hiking group that was heading up into the mountains. Honestly, I wasn't in the mood. Work was a mess, I was broke, and my car was one repair away from collapsing completely. But I said screw it, and packed my old backpack. The group wasn't huge, 6 of us total. A mix of hikers, weekend adventurers, and one old guy who said he came up here for the water. I thought he was weird, but he had this glint in his eye like he knew something. The first day went as expected, sore legs, breathtaking views, and a freezing night under the stars. But on the second day, everything changed. We stopped by a small mountain river to rest. While the others were eating snacks, I wandered off a little and noticed something sparkling under the shallow water. At first, I thought it was just sunlight bouncing off a rock, until I reached down and picked it up. It was heavy. Too heavy for a stone that small. My heart started racing. It was a gold nugget. And that was just the beginning.